So guys, and today we're talking about marathon recovery. And look, I don't want you to look at me and think I'm going to do what Matt does with his marathon recovery, because I'm the first person to say that I could definitely recover better. I do what works for me, and actually oftentimes I do what doesn't work for me because it's what I want to do, not what's best for me. So I don't want you to do what I do, really. Maybe some of the little things would work for you, but for the most part, you've got to kind of find out what works for you, you know what I'm saying? And what works for you could differ depending on your race, depending on how you approach the race. So yeah, marathon recovery, it isn't easy. In fact, it could be even more difficult than the marathon itself. Well, that's not true at all, but it's still pretty difficult. Let's get into it. Alright guys, look, I don't want anyone coming to this video thinking, you know what, I have no idea about marathon recovery, so I'm going to watch Matt's video and that's going to tell me exactly what I need to know. No, that's not how this works. I've actually gone online and I found a couple articles, and that's what I'm basing our little discussion on. And of course I will place links to those articles in the show notes below, so if you want to go and check out what I have looked at, you can. But with that said, what we're going to talk about, the recovery tips that I'm going to mention today, they're pretty much common knowledge. I mean, common knowledge among marathoners, or I should say common knowledge among people that have actually focused on their recovery, right? For a long time and a lot of marathons, I didn't even give a second thought to marathon recovery. I mean, obviously I knew if I'm going to go and run a marathon, I can't run a marathon the next day, and maybe I'd take a day or two off and then I'd start running again, and I'd jump right back into what I was doing before the race itself, right? So clearly I didn't know what I was doing. Some would argue that I still don't, but ultimately, as with everything, we have to do what's right for us, right? As long as it's not hurting anyone else, you do whatever makes you happy. But with that said, I think you'll be happier if you focus a little more on recovery than you usually do. Like, a marathon's a big deal. You know, it's likely that you haven't run that effort that you ran the marathon in your training, right? I mean, that isn't a stretch. Yes, you may do some marathon effort workouts, you may do a long run. It's unlikely that your long run was at 26.2 miles or 42.2 kilometers at marathon pace. So obviously, you're going a little harder on race day than you do in your day-to-day life. That means you're going to have to recover a little more. In fact, I would say that in my training, I don't recover at all. Yes, I take one day off a week from running, but really that is based on my work schedule and not whether I've done a hard workout or a long run. So I'm not purposely recovering from any particular workout. And the reason that we want to recover after a marathon, it's not just to feel good. I mean, that's a big part of it too, but really that's not the main reason. The main reason is that because you are an athlete who has just put in a lot of time into training for your marathon, and it's highly probable that this is not where you're going to end. Your life doesn't end at this one marathon. You're going to want to recover, and you're going to want to do something else. Probably another marathon. So recovering appropriately is going to reduce your risk of overtraining or overuse injuries. And the amount of time that you actually invest in your recovery, it's going to depend on a few things. I mean, maybe you've got a recipe and you just follow it no matter what you do. But if you want to dial in that fit a little more, you're going to have to look at the type of race you run. Was it a super flat marathon? Was it a very hilly marathon? How about your effort level? Let's say this is an all-out, foot to the floor, gunning for a PB type of marathon. You may have to recover just a little more than if you were going out just to complete the distance, maybe just to get the medal. I know that over the last couple of years, I have paced people at several marathons, and when I am pacing someone that runs a little slower than me, I found that I don't really require any additional recovery after doing that. I mean, it just feels like a long run. But if you're going for a PB, or if you're going for your best possible time on the day, it's likely it's going to be pretty taxing. Probably going to wear you out a bit. Probably going to want to recover a little more. Look, I hate to say it, but you're also going to have to consider your age. You know what I mean? Like, are you as young as you used to be? It's unlikely. How about your general fitness level? Let's say that you are a new runner. It might hit you a little harder than if you are a seasoned marathoner. How about your general health? You know, there's a lot of aspects that go into just our general health. We can run a marathon, but if we are also, I don't know, smoking a cigarette while doing it, your recovery may take a bit longer. Actually, I have no idea if that's true, but it sounds like it could be true. Also, there's your nutritional status and your hydration status. Have you been eating enough? Have you been eating the right type of foods? And I'm not telling you what the right type of foods are, that all depends on you. But hydration status, are you dehydrated? One of the big things that we have to do as soon as we cross the line is to make sure we rehydrate. Because if you didn't know, a marathon takes a lot of work, and sometimes we end it feeling a bit thirsty. You know, I know we have the aid stations and we get the water and we get the Gatorade or the Noon. We take that as we go along, but I'm telling you, you are not taking in enough liquid. I mean, you might think you are, but it's a very rare person that gets to the end of racing a marathon and thinks, I don't need to drink anything at all, I drank enough while I was running. Okay, so we've got all these factors that play into our recovery and how we're going to do it, but also depends on the day of the week. Now, I don't mean Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I mean, you could be the exact same runner, like running a race 1 month, and then you could run the same race the next month or 2 months later, or however long it takes you to fully recover. And your recovery is going to be a lot longer one time than it is the other. I mean, it may not be, but it could be. So by saying that, I think I want you to remember that just because you recovered a certain way one time doesn't mean the same thing is going to happen the next time. Also, and this is a great thing for everything in life, on Strava and when completing a marathon, but don't compare yourself to others. Just because your mate says, it only took me a week to recover, doesn't mean that it's not going to take you 2 weeks to recover, or any amount of time. So in the past, there have been times when, well, I remember one specifically, and it was Boston one year, and I was in the Boston area visiting my family, and after the Boston Marathon, the next day I went out and I just went on a 10-mile run. Now, I totally do not recommend you do that. It's probably good to take a little bit of time off, but if you look at your idiot friend who does something like that, that doesn't mean that you should follow in their footsteps, okay? Don't do what I do, or don't do what I did. I've actually gotten a lot better with recovery as the years have gone on. In fact, this time after the Toronto Marathon, which at the time that this video was posting was 2 weeks ago, I actually took 3 days completely off of doing nothing. I mean, I say nothing, I mean I didn't run. But I did go out and I go for a walk in the mornings just to get my legs stretched out and shaken out, and you feel a lot better after you do that. So with recovery, it's also good to keep moving. And this is key immediately after you finish the race. Like, you don't want to cross the finish line and then just sit down on the sofa and put your feet up. Telling you will turn into the Tin Man and you will be very painful to get up. You're going to want to keep moving. Even though you don't want to, you really should keep moving, just doing easy movements, and you will feel so much better. So I have found a couple articles. One is the Marathon Recovery Guide in the Marathon Handbook, and the other is the 10 best recovery tips from runstreet.com. And of course, I just went through the list, but I really don't need a list. I mean, these are all stuff that you've heard before. So the first tip is to hydrate. We've already covered that. Make sure you stay hydrated because a marathon is typically going to dehydrate you. Now, the second tip on Run Street is actually, it's pretty good. I haven't done it. I didn't do it for my last marathon, but I like the sound of it. It's putting your legs up the wall. So, you lay on the floor with your legs up the wall, kind of like, doesn't work. Anyway, legs up the wall. You know what that looks like. And that legs up the wall position is kind of like a restorative pose, and it helps stretch those hamstrings. And I guess the gravity helps the blood flow from your legs back to your heart and just promotes recovery and feeling good. Feeling good is what it's all about. The Run Street third recovery tip is pretty silly, but it's refuel. Did anyone not think refueling was part of the marathon recovery process? Anyway, this is the perfect time to refuel because, listen, not only did you earn it, you burned a lot of calories during that marathon, and it's time to put those back in to help heal your body. And of course, you're going to see things like, you got to eat healthy. But look, I'm not a dietitian, and I'm not handing out dietary advice. But for me, I eat what I want. For example, after my past marathon, I went out and I got a pizza. And of course, there was a lot of other stuff, including bananas and peanut butter. I kind of eat those no matter the occasion. But when I got home, I had a big ice cream sundae. And then I had several more ice cream sundaes as the week went on. And that's all in the name of recovery. I didn't want to have those ice cream sundaes with caramel sauce and whipped cream, but I did in the name of good health and recovery. Okay, the fourth recovery tip on Run Street is gentle exercise. And by gentle exercise, they mean walking. Walking is pretty good. Generally, I find that I get pretty tired after walking a good couple miles. So remember, it is exercise, but it's good exercise. It's not going to have that same level of pounding that running does. If you do follow me on Strava, you know that I'm a big fan of the elliptical. I do like that non-impact, very low intensity aerobic exercise. And of course, I'd say swimming or even aqua jogging is a fantastic recovery aid. I don't have easy access to a pool, so I don't do that, but if I did, I would. The next recovery tip is to foam roll. I don't know. Look, if you've been watching me for a while, you know that I'm not the biggest fan of foam rolling. In fact, listen, I'll say it, I'll put an absolute on it, I don't do it. And look, it's not because I'm lazy, it's because I'm lazy and I just don't like it. But what I do though, is I have a massage gun, and I love this. I don't love it when I'm not recovering, but I do love it when my muscles are already sore, and I think it really works well. This one is from Bob and Brad. It's a very affordable model, but for my recovery, what I like the best is lying face down on my bed and then reaching around and digging this thing into my hamstrings. My hamstrings are the muscle that get the absolute sorest, and this really helps. Anyway, tip 6 of the recovery tips is massage. I don't like really massage. I don't like going and getting massages, so can't really say much about that. But if you like it, why not go and treat yourself? Tip 7 is to take a bath. Yeah, not a fan of taking a bath. Seems like a waste of time. and a waste of water. But look, if you're a bath type of person, go and take a bath. I'm sure it will feel quite good. But that said, I do like sitting in the hot tub. I suppose the only difference between a hot tub and a bath is that other people are in the hot tub with you. But look, no shame. You do you. Recovery tip number 8 is to collect your thoughts. And I like this one. I like this one because it allows you to focus on what you've done. And this is a big achievement. If you have run a marathon, it doesn't matter if you didn't meet the goal that you set for yourself. It's still a big achievement and you did something pretty fantastic. So let's take a minute and I want you to just give yourself a clap or give someone that you know a clap that has run a marathon. But look, I know it's not as easy as that. Sometimes it's not easy to focus on something that you don't think went as well as it could have done. And that's where this recovery tip to collect your thoughts comes in. You can use this time to think about what you did, think about possibly where things went wrong or where things went right. And whatever happens, whether things went wrong or things went right, you can use that as like a thought experiment when you're in your next race, when you're digging deep. And look, I know I said not to compare yourself to others, but if you are not happy with your time, pretty much in any race, but we're talking about marathon recovery, so we'll stick to marathons for now. But if you're not happy with how you did in a race, then perhaps you should just think about all the people that are slower than you, or better yet, all the people that just can't be bothered to run marathons. Because my friends, there's a lot more of them. And no matter how poorly you think you did pretty fantastic. All right, next recovery tip is sleep. I don't know how deep I'm going to dig into this. In fact, I'm not going to dig deep into it all. We all know that sleep is pretty beneficial. Sleep is where the repair and the recovery happens, and when I don't sleep, I get pretty grumpy. I'd imagine you do too. So sleep is a good thing. Do more of it. And the 10th recovery tip on runstreet.com is to take time off. Look, I can't tell you how much time to take off. I think a lot of coaches recommend between 3 and 7 days completely off. But then you're going to read a lot of times that people say to take a day off for every mile that you've run. Right? So a marathon of 26 miles, you're going to take 26 days off. Listen, I'm not sure. I don't really agree with this, and I've heard other interpretations of this, but I don't think taking a month off after a marathon is, totally necessary. I mean, if you want to, do it. But if you don't, after a couple of weeks, you can slowly get back into it. In fact, I like to do a reverse taper. You taper down your volume, then when you finish the race, take a couple of days off, and then you do a reverse taper where you slowly get back into your training. Now remember, it doesn't have to be specific training. You're not training for another race, or maybe you are, but in this example, let's say we're not training for another race. So all we're doing is a bit of light exercise. We're going out and running for our mental health. And I actually like the interpretation of the 1 day off per mile run when you consider it's no hard workout for 1 day off for every mile that you've run. So let's say you race a 5K, you're not going to do any hard workouts for the next 3 days, right? That makes sense. 10K, 6 days off, half marathon, 2 weeks off, a marathon, just under a month off, right? So you can still come back to running after a week, after 2 weeks, and then you can just get into things gradually. And then after about 4 weeks, or 26 days, if you're going to take it to the letter, you can start incorporating maybe a bit of speed work, maybe picking up the pace a bit, depending on how you feel. I guess the main thing is to listen to your body and do what feels good. But guys, I want to hear from you, and I want to know what you do. What is your number one go-to marathon recovery tip? Like, what is it that makes a difference? Listen, if you've run a marathon, I'm going to assume that you're drinking something after, that you're probably having something to eat, and that you're probably getting some sleep. I'm also going to take a wild guess and that you take at least a couple of days off after a marathon. But if there's something groundbreaking that I've missed, or you just want to leave a comment with one of the things that I've already said, totally fine. And with that, it's Matt B. This has been a video kind of just talking to myself about marathon recovery. But if you like it, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. And usually I don't like to ask people to subscribe, so I'm not going to start today. In fact, if you're still watching at this point, it's highly likely you're already subscribed to the channel. So thank you. Thank you for being a part of the club. And if you have made it to this point in the video, why don't you put the little mushroom emoji, the little Super Mario mushroom emoji that we see 1,000 times on signs when we're running a marathon. You know, that hit here to power up emoji. All right, be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.